days removed from the 2025 draft lottery. We've had now a decent amount of time to process and think what just happened a few nights ago. And yeah, the NBA just kind of landscape shifted this offseason when the Mavericks won the lottery. Bleacher Report ended up coming out with an article saying the NBA draft lottery's biggest winners and losers. So I pretty much just wanted to react to this today and give you guys some of my winners and losers from the draft lottery as well. And we currently have the combine going on. The first scrimmage game is today, which I'm super excited for. I think it's a really cool time where you could see kind of players that maybe weren't going to go high in the draft, at least make more of a name for themselves. I mean, a big standout in the 2022 draft was Jalen Williams at the combine. I think Brandon Podziemski was very close to putting up a triple-double in one of the combine games in 2023. That pretty much skyrocketed him up draft boards into the middle end of the first round. Last year, when I was actually at the combine, there really wasn't a major standout. Last year was kind of like, I don't know if it was like lame, but there was a lot of guys. I mean, there was so much variance. You guys knew that in the 2024 draft. It wasn't looked at as a strong draft, and so many guys did not play in the combine game. And I totally get it. Like, you may already have a tell that you're going to be a first round pick. You may already have a tell that somebody maybe at pick 31 is targeting you. You don't want to risk an injury, and you don't want to maybe have a horrible game and get people out of your mind. But like, KJ Simpson had a good combine game. I forget if AJ Mitchell was in it off the top of my head. Nikola Jurisic stood out a little bit at the combine game. Cam Spencer missed a lot of shots in the combine game. It really doesn't matter, but it is cool to see like somebody in the past with like J-Dub and Podziemski ball out in the combine games, and you can see where they are moving forward. So let's hop into this article, talk about the draft lottery and more of the NBA landscape of things. So a big winner is Nico Harrison and the Dallas Mavericks. Yeah, you probably have to say Nico Harrison is the biggest winner. Have your guys' opinions, if you're on YouTube, let me know in the comments. Like, has your opinion changed on Nico Harrison at all because of this? Do you think he deserved this at all? So yeah, you trade away Luka Doncic. You are the most hated man by a lot of people in the NBA landscape, and you're probably the most hated man in Dallas in maybe, 60 years until something happened back then in Dallas. So yeah, I think Nico Harrison, maybe, I don't know if Mavericks fans are going to be bought all the way back in yet until they see Cooper Flagg on the floor, because, man, I totally get it. Like, when, it's not the same scenario, but like, when the Knicks traded away, like, Carmelo, or they traded away, for me, it was David Lee when I was younger, or Kristaps Porzingis. I was just like, I don't really want to watch this team, man. Like, this kind of stinks. Like, I have nobody to root for, and you probably felt that, but you also had Anthony Davis, who's a really good player, and now you have Cooper Flagg going forward for your future. I think it's been reported that they are not trading the number one pick, nor should they, because, yeah, if you could trade number one for Giannis, straight up, sure, you think about that, but it's not that. You have to trade away Clay and Gafford and PJ, as well as the number one overall pick, just to get Giannis. I don't really know if it's worth it, because you're going to have no bench. Unless you're trading number one for, like, Wemby, or you're trading number one for Cade Cunningham on a rookie deal, or Paolo Banchero on a rookie deal. Yeah, sure, those make sense, but it wouldn't make sense here to trade for Giannis, and this team is going to be pretty competitive next year. I don't know if we have, like, an official timeline on Kyrie's ACL recovery. Benefits him that it wasn't Achilles, it was a ACL tear, and there's a chance he's back in like March, but like, Kyrie relies so much on his shiftiness and his agility and his elusiveness downhill. How is he going to look off an ACL tear? It's going to be tough for him to, I think, respond at least right away in the 2026 season. So I thought about, like, what if San Antonio offered them an absolute haul for number one to swap? San Antonio gets Cooper Flagg, Dallas gets, I don't know, maybe you get Jeremy Sohan. Maybe you get number two, so you're taking Dylan Harper to be your guard until Kyrie gets back and can play with Kyrie. And then you also get, like, every single swap they own from Atlanta, all the swaps they came back from Dallas, Sacramento, and Minnesota. Just makes you think a little bit. I don't think Dallas is going to do that. I still think they're going to take Cooper Flagg with the number one overall pick. The losers here, the true tankers, especially Utah. I've seen a lot of people talk about how the NBA lottery is not what it should be, and how the NBA is rigged. I don't think the NBA is rigged. I know the NBA is not rigged. It'd be too tough to do in the year 2025. But yeah, the tankers, man. I mean, Utah, Washington, Brooklyn, Philadelphia, not really them, because they actually did get lucky here. New Orleans, all pretty much dropped here in the lottery. And yeah, you win under 25 games this year to get the 6th overall pick. It's really tough to really stomach that. Like, Utah's got what, pick 5? And you could still get a really good player at 5. Like, you could land a Trey Johnson. You could land a Jeremiah Fears or Kaman Maluach. And if you really believe in this guy, they could be an all-NBA player one day. They really can be. But it's not as sure of a thing as like a Dylan Harper or a Cooper Flagg. Now, I think the NBA can implement a different lottery system going forward. I think there could be a couple things they could add. I think, I'm trying to think here what they could do. because I think off the top of my head, I really like the idea that the MLB does it in their CBA and their lottery, where you can't, I believe, be in the top 10 or the top 5 back-to-back years. I want to say, I forget which one it is, but I think for the NBA, that's not a bad rule. I've mentioned it before, I think, here on the pod, like, might have been in the last episode. Like, the Spurs got 1 in 23, 4 in 24. They should be ineligible to get the first or a top 5 pick this year. Then, if they rose up into the top 4, they technically get number 6. I think that would be very fair. For these teams that are constantly tanking or being bad every single year, that, all right, you can get in here a little bit and you can be in the top 5 for back-to-back years, but after that, the highest you could be is 8, or the highest you could be is 6, or something like that. I think that's a good implementation. And then I think stretching out the odds for maybe the top 3 teams instead of 14%, maybe make it 20% for those teams, or maybe make it 20% for the first 4 teams. I just don't think, while it is cool that, like, teams that were competitive get rewarded with number 1, like Atlanta last year with Reese Shea, the Pelicans in 2019 with Zion, this year the Mavericks with Cooper Flag. Like, they weren't openly trying to lose like some of these other teams, which is kind of disrespectful to the sport in a way. I get why you do it. We saw why Philadelphia did it. We saw why a lot of these teams did it. But the number 1 or the worst team in the NBA has never gotten the number 1 pick in the new lottery era since 2019. Rockets haven't gotten it. Pistons haven't gotten it. New York, Golden State. These teams have dropped. Yeah, you have the highest floor. You could drop to 5, but I don't know. I mean, somebody's got to be due, right, to have the worst record and get the number 1 overall pick in the new lottery system. But we just watched a team, number 11, move up. We watched a team that was, where were the Spurs, like 6, 7, 8? They moved up. We watched the 76ers, who were like 5. They moved up, and they didn't lose their pick. So, yeah, I do think the true tankers are definitely big losers. And now, like, for Utah, like I said, you could still draft a really good player. I'm excited if they get, like, Jeremiah Fears or Kasparis or Trey Johnson, and thinking about what that future can look like. But yeah, it sucks because you just got like a gunshot to the chest, and it's like, damn, we lost all these games this year. We were so embarrassing. I had to sell ownership that we are going to lose these games because we have the best chance at getting a franchise-changing talent, which is technically true. But now, like, what do you have to show for it, right? I wonder if these teams are going to be bad next year. They may not have a choice. Like, Utah may trade Bobby Market in this offseason. They may have their eyes set on the 2026 draft, which right now looks like it has a 3-headed monster of AJ DeBanza, Cameron Boozer, and Darren Peterson. Now, we thought it was a 3-headed monster going into this year, or we thought Ace Bailey going into this year was like the consensus number 2 guy, and now it's like, all right, do we even take him at 3 if you're Philadelphia? So, like, Peterson or AJ or Boozer could have a bad college season, and we change our mindsets on those guys. I think Utah's going to be bad next year. I think Brooklyn's going to be bad next year. I mean, these things can change in the offseason. Maybe Washington in a weaker Eastern Conference can take a leap if some of the young core guys can take a step forward, like a Sar or Bilal or whoever they drafted 6, which I think could be Kasparis or Jeremiah Fears. Or if they want Kaman Maluach and could have a twin tower front court. So yeah, the Spurs are obviously big winners as well. Such a fascinating situation this offseason if they're going to keep number 2 or if they're going to trade it. Like I said before, like, do you think they would trade up if they could to get Cooper Flag? Do they pivot and go for Kevin Durant but keep number 2 and they maybe move 14 and all that? Do they trade away 2 for Giannis Antetokounmpo? All of that is there. Now I wonder if Giannis is just looking at the Eastern Conference and it's like, all right, Boston is not going to be Boston next year. I know we couldn't beat Indiana, but 2 of those games could have gone our way and we didn't have Damian Lillard. I mean, if Dame was a free agent, yeah, I think there could be a pathway for Milwaukee to do something next year, but you have $50 million of just dead money on your books. They'll get like a $15 million disabled player exception, which is something, but can Giannis and a bunch of role players do anything next year? I thought that maybe they're going to do like a Kyle Kuzma for DeMar DeRozan swap. I mean, the Giannis DeRozan, they're going to bring mid-range back, right? I don't know. It's something that might not cost a lot to stay competitive. I wonder if they can orchestrate a deal with their little cap space to help get some assets going forward. It just sucks they don't have a first-round pick. Like the Clippers, the Suns, these teams that don't have a lot of draft capital going forward, at least half first this year. Milwaukee's first-rounders going to Brooklyn. So we'll see what they end up doing with Giannis. If I had to guess, I don't think they trade him. There's been so many talks that they were going to trade Giannis in the past. Now, they don't really have draft capital to move Giannis. I don't think... Like, what if they traded Damian Lillard for Drew Holiday? That'd be hilarious. And Dame gets rerouted somewhere else, and Drew's back in Milwaukee. And I'm just spewing now. So, like, I think they're in a very tough position. San Antonio's offer with number 2 intrigues me, because you could build around Dylan Harper going forward, and at least gives you something. But you don't own your picks. So, I'm trying to work out a way to get New Orleans or Portland involved. Probably New Orleans, because they have the next upcoming picks. Get your picks back. Maybe retool for 2 years, and then you hope to be competitive again in, like I said, a weaker Eastern Conference in 2027. So, yeah, I don't I think it helps. Like, if Washington and Utah were picking 1 and 2, I think that could decrease the value of a Giannis Antetokounmpo return. But now I think San Antonio can rival the package of Houston. And it's also like, would they trade Castle instead of Harper? Because now you have a year, like if you're that sold on Harper and you add Giannis to a team with Fox and Wemby, do you think like, yeah, if you think Harper could be as good as Castle, he's going to hit free agency 1 year later, which saves you a lot of money down the line because you're going to have to pay Wemby next offseason, which kicks in the year after that. It's just something to think about if you're San Antonio. Or do you trade De'Aaron Fox if you're okay with that? I don't know. Well, I don't think they move Fox because I do think they're going to extend him this offseason. The losers conference balance, yeah, you could definitely say that. Like I tweeted out, got like 20,000 likes that like, what is going to be the Eastern Conference next year? Jason Tatum's probably out for the year. Damian Lillard's probably out for the year. Giannis may get traded to the West. And what was the last thing? Was that just it? Yeah, that was just pretty much it. And like, who's going to be competing in the Eastern Conference next year at the top? Like, you'd assume it's Indiana, right? Now that they're in the conference finals, do they even get aggressive this offseason or they run it back? Cleveland should be back unless they make a trade. But I think if they make a trade, it's still going to be a competitive one. I think Mitchell and Mobley are guaranteed back. Maybe they float out the idea of a Garland or Jared Allen trade. It's not out of the question since they're a second apron team. You'd assume the Knicks will be back, but the Knicks don't have a lot of depth, and the Knicks were very healthy this year. So I'm not going to assume that they're going to be a lock to be a top 4 seed next year. They're going to have a lot of miles on them this year, especially if they can make it to the conference finals. Detroit, you think is going to be better next year. I don't know if Detroit's going to be like a top 4 seed if they don't add this offseason. I think it helped them this year that Philly was bad and Toronto was banged up and Miami traded Jimmy and Orlando was banged up. I think like normally they wouldn't have been a top 6 seed. They would have probably been around 7 or 8, but they were an above 500 team, took the Knicks to 6 games, and they're incredibly young. They're going to be up there next year. I think Orlando's going to be really good next year. Philly should be back next year, even with or without like Embiid and Paul George. Like you add Ace Bailey, you have Maxey McKean and Grimes. Like you got players out there and they can add to the depth of the squad too going forward. I mean, Toronto could take a step. They added Brandon Ingram this year, and they're going to have another top 10 pick. They also fell in the lottery. They could be back into the swing of things. I don't think Chicago, I mean, maybe Miami trades for Kevin Durant. Like the East is wide open. The East is wide open, and the West is an absolute juggernaut. It's a gauntlet out there, man. It really is. Like, not only the Spurs, who could get Wemby, or excuse me, could get Giannis. Either way, they have Wemby. They're going to be a lot better next year with the full year of Fox, year 2 Castle going forward, and maybe Dylan Harper. Dallas didn't even make the playoffs. They're going to have Anthony Davis. Hopefully he can be healthy for the year. They're going to have Cooper Flag and still a good enough roster to be competitive in the Western Conference. I know the Pelicans were one of the worst teams this year, but that was because of injuries. If they run most of this team back, make a pick in the top 10, maybe make a lateral trade, they're going to at least be competitive next year. Sacramento, I don't think it's going to be great next year, but they're going to be competitive. I'm talking about like playing teams. Portland should take a step next year. They were almost on the playing tournament this year. They have a young improving team. They have another lottery pick. Phoenix can't afford to lose because they don't own their draft picks. I assume them trading Kevin Durant is some type of lateral move. They want to be competitive next year. Man, we're just set up for Utah to be the worst team in the West next year, basically. Maybe Sacramento should kind of tank next year, honestly, which I feel bad for their fans thinking of that. And then you have Ant in Minnesota, Jokic in Denver, Shea and the Juggernaut Thunder throughout the regular season. You have Luka in LA. You have the Clippers, who are trying to win right now with Kawhi and James Harden getting into their twilight years in this league. You have Memphis, who's still young and competitive. Not saying they're going to be a top 3 seed, but they're going to be pretty good. I would say middle of the pack NBA terms of like a top 15-ish team. And then you also have Houston, who may trade for Giannis. And even if they don't, they were the 2 seed this year. The West is unreal. Unreal. Now, there's still a ton of talent in the East, but the West is on another stratosphere. It really is. And I'm surprised, that's why I think an Eastern Conference team this offseason could be like, all right, this is our chance. Orlando could be like, let's trade Jalen Suggs. I don't know about Franz, but let's trade away our draft capital going forward. We're going to be good with Paolo and Franz every year. Let's trade all our draft picks to get somebody like Kevin Durant here, or try to get somebody like Ja Morant here, or Trae Young, or somebody like that this offseason. Domantas Sabonis doesn't make sense for that team, but like somebody in that tier, or Zion for a team like in Atlanta, right? Like I'd even mention Atlanta. I think Atlanta's going to be better next year in the East too. So I think the East is wide open for all the wrong reasons, and the West is probably still wide open for all the right reasons, especially if Giannis goes there to the West. The Philadelphia 76ers, big winners as well. Now, if you guys watched the Zach Lowe podcast, really cool insight he gave with Bill Simmons, that he was in the room where they select the lottery balls. So it's like 10 or 15 media people and then one representative for every team that goes into that to see the ping pong balls with like Ernst & Young, the accounting firm, draw them and audit them. And the GM, like Daryl Morey, does not know what's going on in there. It's only the representative. So they draw it in like orders of 4, and they draw the first pick, second pick, all the way down to 14, and it's like different orders. And it's kind of crazy. And he was like talking that like the first 3 numbers came up, and it's like, okay, if numbers, I'm not going to get this exactly, but number 8, if that's the next number, Dallas gets 1. If it's 7, it's Utah. And like, it went to Dallas, and everybody in the room just like could not control either laughter or shock. And it's just like, oh my God, what just happened? San Antonio too, everyone's like looking left and right, Utah going down, Washington going down, Toronto, Brooklyn, everybody's going down. And then Philadelphia, who, shout out Kevin Nagandi, Temple alumni, messed it up on the broadcast because, I mean, it's hard to keep track in real time, but with the Spurs and the Mavericks moving up into the top 4, he basically said that Philadelphia is going to lose their pick. But when they didn't show up there at number 7, he like recorrected himself, and he's like, oh, Philadelphia has potentially moved up now because they would have dropped even more with 2 teams leaping behind them unless they were the 3rd team to move up, which they do. They move up to number 3. They really also make out very well from this. Daryl Morey was relieved. Nick Nurse was relieved. Elton Brand was there, who I guess is in there in some like advisory role. Because he used to be the GM, and I think he was like interviewing for the Hawks GM. He might have withdrew his name. But yeah, crazy for Philly. They have an interesting decision to make. Ace Bailey or VJ Edgecombe make the most sense for this team. Maybe Daryl really likes Trey Johnson, or he looks at Kamau Watch as somebody that can eventually replace Embiid. That could happen. Morey's got a good draft track record in Philadelphia so far with McCain and Maxey and getting like a Dembona in the 2nd round and Justin Edwards as an undrafted pick. So he's done well over the last few years when the Sixers have had draft picks. So it'll be cool to see what they do. I think there are some trades on the table if like Brooklyn or New Orleans really wants Ace Bailey or somebody to move up to number 3, could they trade down a little bit and guarantee themselves still a top 10 pick? And they can get a good role player. Or maybe Utah. Like, could Philly just add John Collins or Colin Sexton or Jordan Clarkson and something else, and they could just swap with Utah 2 spots? Or could they trade down with Brooklyn, get Cam Johnson, and they could still end up with the Colin Murray Boyles, a Carter Bryant, a trying to like Con Knipple in that range, right? So I think Philadelphia has a ton of different options. Derek Queen could be there for them, and they are massive winners. And then the last winner is going to be a potential winner and loser, and that is Cooper Flagg. I honestly, like, people were like, this is not a good spot for him to grow. I honestly think it's great. Like, he's going to step in right away with great leaders in the locker room. Okay, maybe the front office is a crapshoot right now with what's going on in their direction, and they just got saved by the lottery, and who knows about the new ownership. But Flagg is on the pipeline or the track right now where he's going to play good for 3 years. He's going to get his rookie max, and he's going to be set up for his life going forward. And he pretty much is on a number 1 pick deal. Like, that's like 30 million plus in guaranteed money. So he goes to a spot where he doesn't need to be at number 1 right away, like he would have to be in Brooklyn or Utah, maybe even Washington. That's a lot of pressure out of the gate, which I think he would be fine in for sure in those situations. But now he gets to be complimented offensively and defensively by Anthony Davis, a future Hall of Famer. That is a great spot for Flagg to learn from somebody that's had the pressure of being a number 1 overall pick, that has had sky high expectations. That could be somebody that could be taken under his wing, and I think that's a great spot for Cooper Flagg. I mean, Kyrie Irving has obviously been up and down with maybe being a good mentor in the NBA throughout his career, but it seems like he's in a really good spot here in Dallas, and I don't know what he's going through with the injury, but I mean, another number 1 overall pick that had high expectations that also hit one of the biggest shots of this century in the finals. That's a great veteran to learn from. He gets to play with Daniel Gafford, Derek Lively, PJ Washington for now, Klay Thompson, who's been in big moments and is a good veteran in this league, Najee Marshall. Like, he gets a lot of talent to help him on both ends of the floor. And I think if there's a time where Cooper Flagg is shooting like 43% in a month and the Mavericks can still win games, and he's not going to be under a lot of scrutiny. So, yeah, I do think Cooper Flagg is in a good spot in Dallas team-wise right now. If you want to say that it's the front office that you don't feel comfortable about going forward, I get that. But I think he's fine here in Dallas, and I think Jason Kidd is also a good coach for him too moving forward. So that was Bleacher Report's winners and losers. I'm trying to give some off the top of my head as well. Like, I would say a loser has to be, I don't know if it's Dylan Harper in a way, because like Dylan Harper now is either going to come off the bench or get traded, which I guess is a little unease going into the draft. You never know that. I would say Milwaukee, like a Milwaukee Buck fan, because yeah, Giannis is, like, I think there's a better chance Giannis gets traded to the Spurs if they get number 2 and not number 1. So it's a pick they're more willing to give up. So maybe Bucks fans are losers here, thinking, oh, we actually might lose Giannis. Obviously, they mentioned the tanking teams. Maybe the Brooklyn Nets could be the biggest loser here. They were supposed to get a top pick after trading Mikal last offseason. I'm sure Jazz fans are like, we traded Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert 3 off seasons ago now, and we don't have a blue chip prospect to show for it. Like, Walker Kessler, good young player. Collier showed flashes. George has showed flashes, but it's like we don't have that Wemby. We don't have, I don't know if there's really a blue chipper from last year. Maybe it's a Stephon Castle. We don't have a Cooper Flag or Dylan Harper going forward. So yeah, that is going to be for me. Hope you guys did enjoy this episode of the Just Ballin' Podcast. If you did, I would appreciate you dropping a thumbs up on YouTube. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, really appreciate a rating and review over there. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.